All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. And today we've got a special guest on, which is always exciting to have, actual people on the show. Today we've got Mark Lanoue, who is, I believe, the founder, lead vocalist, and if I'm wrong here, Mark, you're gonna have to correct me, and maybe chief songwriter for the band Fiction Syxx. Is that mostly correct?
Mostly. I play guitar too. So I was originally a guitarist. It wasn't until later I found out that I could sing. At least some people say I could sing, others not so much. It just depends on who it is.
Yeah, well, I've heard the stuff, so I can attest, I can vouch for the fact that you can sing. So just let the audience, give them full confidence. Your latest complete album is called The Alternate Me. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, it's our second album.
Yeah,
it came out in 2019, and it's an interesting move from the first record. The debut was it started more like a project originally. I wanted to play with a lot of people that I had, that I really liked as when I was growing up and stuff like that. So I decided to also reach out to ex-members of bands, like, my former bandmate Carl Sentence, who sings for Nazareth now, and he sang for the Geezer Butler Band. So he was in a band with Jimmy Bell, who was with Autograph, and he was with House of Lords for years. So I had a bunch of people come on. Tony Franklin played bass on that one, which I know that Eric mentioned that as well. Eric's been real close to him. He's a wonderful guy. Yeah. And so the first record, we had Bill Leverty, we had my buddy Steve Brown from Trickster. I was in New Jersey, when he was in the clubs, I was also in the clubs, and, they were the mighty Trickster. So anyway, we got really close, and so he played on the track. And so there's lots of really cool names in that one. But The Alternate Me had to do more with the the day and the night, and some of the things I'm into. I'm into symbolism, I'm into religion, I'm into culture. And so my birthday is 6/6/66. So I'm also a Gemini, and so is J.K. Northrup. So the whole alternate me made a lot of sense. The id, like right now I'm wearing my shirt from work and I'm in my office, and at night I put on the old, like my friend Scott, he says I put on my Dracula rings, and who've had it. So the alternate me was that's what it was all about. It was that premise between the day and the night, the yin and the yang, and what we do during the day and what we really want to be when we grow up, right? So that's the whole premise behind that. Yeah.
Cool. It makes for really interesting rock music. It's not about just cruising around in the car looking for chicks or whatever. So you're really actually kind of doing the thought-provoking lyrics. I thought a little bit, when I listened to your music, I thought a little bit of like Ronnie James Dio for some reason. I don't know why, but it just popped. I think the singing style a little bit, and the tone of the music. Any connection with Dio at all?
I love Dio. His tone, richness of his voice, the power, the control, the emotion. So I was very much inspired by people like him and Tony Harnell from TNT, and Dennis DeYoung. Obviously, I'm a huge Syxx fan, and that's where the YX came from, by the way, in Syxx. It's from my love for early Syxx. I was growing up, I was a big Syxx fan. So
you guys did a cover, right, of a Syxx track, if I remember?
Yeah, it was Sweet Madam Blue. A friend of mine kept bothering me. He goes, dude, you sound so much like Dennis DeYoung. You have got to do a Syxx song. So he said, you should do Sweet Madam Blue. And since I had someone as great as Eric, it was like, I don't have to know how to play keys. I've got Eric Ranio. So we did Sweet Madam Blue, and it turned out great. But
yes, Eric, by the way, we're talking about Eric Ranio, who I also had as a guest on the show. Eric, as you said before we started, if God needed a keyboard player, he'd probably call up Eric and say, "Hey, what you doing?" He's very versatile, and I've given him a lot of props because quite honestly, he could fit into a number of well-known bands these days. He's learned really well, and you're really fortunate to have him as part of Fiction Syxx.
Yeah, I'm actually honored, just like with the rest of the members. J.K. Northrup, he was with King Cobra and XYZ. Amazing talent.
Yeah.
He also, oh man, can he play the slide? I blow at playing the slide, but JK is like,
Yeah.
really. And of course, we have Larry Hart, who played with Montrose and played with JK. He plays in the Mood Groove with JK and does a number of other things. He's a slam and bass player, and the takeover for Tony Franklin. I mean, you have to be a slam and bass player, right? So, and then my drummer is he was an honor grad from Musicians Institute. I went to Musicians Institute in '88. He graduated in '89 with honors, and he's just like a slam and session drummer, and he's just tops. So having these guys, it's an honor. So
tell us about this song that you guys have out right now that is being considered for a Grammy, which is, to me, it's really cool that you guys submitted the song. Why did you feel confident that your song would be considered?
Well, actually, our song was brought to a wonderful individual named Larry Baptiste, and he's written songs for like Whitney Houston and all kinds of other people. He was with Sony International, actually Sony Universal now, I think is what it's called. But he heard it and said, man, you guys are slamming, and he submitted it for us. He's the one who put it in and said that it was worthy. He felt it was worthy. So he's a great guy, wonderful individual. I can't say enough good things about him. But so when it went in, I'm getting lots of responses for it. People are really digging and bleed for the truth for a number of reasons. One is just the music, but also the message. Our songs are always about message. Any song that you ever hear from Fiction Syxx has a message behind it. It has some meaning. So.
Yeah, I was thinking about exploring that song title with all the stuff going on in the world right now, with this pandemic, with the political turmoil, I would call it, the cancel culture, social media, which is just on fire all the time, it seems. People having trouble expressing opinions, not being hostile about it, but now it's like the kind of blowback you get for just, presenting something. And again, I usually like to say on this channel, hey, you don't have to agree with me, but in the old days, as I say, kids get off my lawn, but then I'll say, hey, we used to be able to do this thing called free speech. And I'm wondering, is the song, Bleed for the Truth, does it have any kind of a link to that, or was that that happened way before all this stuff started to kind of converge? Or
well, it's actually had a link to it for a while. This has been going on for some time now. It's just becoming more of the forefront because of the hate and the anger and the political discourse and all that kind of stuff. I'm a history buff. I've been all over the world. I've climbed the Great Wall of China. I've stood by the West Wall in Jerusalem. I've been to the Shoah Museum, where 1.5 million innocent children were put to death, and they're put there with their names and holograms and everything else. And the point is that people don't know history anymore. They don't understand anything about it. And so I don't argue with people about political things, because there's really, all it turns into is an argument, because since I know so much about history and all these things, no one's going to listen anyway. So I believe it's my freedom of speech to say what I want to say, just as it's yours. I'm open to debate. I don't hate someone for their position, but I'm okay with disagreeing with it, and it's okay if they disagree with me. So
yeah, I think from my perspective, the way I look at it is, it seems things have gotten a lot more tribal, and the tribalism, what it tends to do is it slows debate, it obfuscates from what could actually fix the problem, and then people don't talk to each other, and then it festers, and then it gets more intense, rather than, it's kind of like you'd like to say, hey, can we have a ceasefire? Can I put out my little white flag here and just say, look, because we're going to have to figure these problems out eventually, and if we don't start doing it, then these problems are going to get worse to the point where they consume us. You know what I mean? And it's just sad. It's really sad. Everything to me seems like either a dog and pony show where you watch it and you go, that was all just a bunch of propaganda that I just watched. And I know it. I can feel it. You don't even have to educate me. You don't have to, don't give me a history book. Don't give me anything. I can sense it, you know, and I have read books on some of the things that you talked about. I haven't had the experiences traveling that you've had, but I sense that there's something really wrong. And even people who are just apolitical, they can kind of sense something. Do you guys try to convey, like, maybe not directly, but more indirectly, just to get people maybe outside the traditional rock and roll paradigm when you're composing music? Is that your goal, or do you just kind of wing it, and then if it happens, it's an extra bonus, so to speak?
Well, writing takes on different types. It depends on what's going on. So, you know, in some cases it's the music first. Sometimes it's the lyrics and the story. Sometimes the story comes later. So it really depends. But I always try to reach out to people, you know, through music. You know, I want to be able to touch them in some way that they remember it, or they hear a message that they feel that's part of them, or how they feel, or, you know. So that's the way that I always write. Yeah. And I always liked the message. I liked when music had a message to it all the time, whether it was a message I agreed with or not, but it had some storyline or some message and meant something. It wasn't just, hey, I'm going to throw something in some formula and see if it gets on the radio. You know, it's right. That's not what it's about to me. I like the stories. You know, there's lots of things that have happened in my life per se that are in the music. I'm very much, I have a lot of faith. I don't have any problem saying I'm a Christian. I'm not a judgmental one, but I'm, you know, I am one, and I don't have a problem saying that, but I'm not going to whip you down for not being one. You know, if you want to know more about it, I'll tell you. If you want to know how I feel about it, I'll tell you. But other than that, I'm not your judge. So. Yeah,
right. Well, I'm kind of in that boat. I mean, occasionally I talk a little bit about my faith doing this channel, but I tend to avoid it a little bit because I don't want to come off as preachy. And there have been a lot of Christians throughout history that have really made it difficult for the Christians of today. Maybe not old history, although you can go back to the Crusades or whatever, but I'm talking about, you know, maybe in the last 40 or 50 years with things like televangelism and, you know, prosperity preaching and so forth. And, you know, as a Christian, you know, I told my wife, you know, we were pulling up to our church, and it's a church I'm not going to anymore. So it's kind of ironic. I think that between the lockdown and then they weren't doing services for 6 months. And then anyway, it's another video. But I looked around me and I said, you know, this Christianity stuff seems to be kind of like a rich man's sport. And it's like, I don't know where that came from, but I looked around, all these nice cars pulling in. Nobody has a car that's a piece of junk, you know. I mean, representative of what's out there on the highway. I'm thinking to myself, these people, you know, they're going to go play golf after this. They're going to go fishing. They're going to go to the beach. And their lives aren't changing all that much, and they're not changing a lot of people's lives around them. And I'm guilty too, by the way, just full disclosure. And I'm thinking, is this what it was supposed to be about? Is this what, you know, our leader, if you want to call him that, Jesus, is that what he wanted us to do? You know, I don't think so. I think we all kind of missed the mark, but the point is, I just feel, especially American Christianity for the most part, it's lost its way. And right now we probably need it more than ever. We need something real. And instead we're getting, you know, send me $100 and, you know, God will bless you or fix your problem. And it's like, really? So
yeah, it's just another angle of the Machiavellian age, but that's a whole other story that we can maybe discuss that at another time.
I'm sorry. I told you.
No, that's okay. I don't care. It's
going to be conversational, and it just got me thinking about the rich man sport thing.
I saw your shirt too. You got Uriah Heep on there. We also had a Uriah Heep cover on our last album. I'm a big Uriah Heep fan.
See, I knew that. That's why I put on the shirt. No, that's what they call divine providence right there. No, I'm a big fan of the band. It's amazing how they've survived over all this time too. Um, so let's talk about the band because it's what it's supposed to be about.
Sure.
How would you guys categorize? Can you try to put your music into a category, or is it?
I just call it, progressive melodic rock.
Yeah.
The inspiration of each one of us, we have our own, influences, and those influences blend nicely. And it's kind of that chemistry part of things. And, JK and I write really well together. I have thick skin, so I'm always open to hear differences. And he's on this new one has been writing a lot more. Like I'll send a song in and he'll totally redo the chorus, for instance. And I need like 2 or 3 days to listen to it because I've already had something flowing through my head. So I have to kind of clear it out, clear the space.
Yeah.
But when it's all said and done, it's always the right thing. It's just everything comes together quite nicely. And, without these guys, I don't care who's writing it. Without these guys, it would not sound the same. It's a chemistry that comes together and gives the Fiction Syxx sound. So there's a lot to be said about that. People always talk about what they wrote and everything else, but it's kind of like art. I might have an idea for art, but I need really a better artist than me to project it the way I want to, right? So, and that's kind of how I look at it. It's a combination of everybody's effort and abilities to make it sound the way that it does. So.
Cool. So you were on a record label that I guess has now been sold, and
Yes.
you've been signed to a new record label. Are you able to talk about the new label, or where, what's going on with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's MR Records. The two guys running it, their names are both Peter,
Yeah.
but they're really cool guys. And we're working on, like the pre-order campaign for the new record. We're working on things that we can get out to the fans and the people who do pre-order, and, to do some cool things. We're focused right now on the Grammys because the voting period ends on Tuesday, and we're like really busting butt as an independent, a smaller label who's not, like Lady Gaga trying to get, trying to get this stuff out there and get voting members to hear it. That's where we're at right now, but the songs are coming along so great. We have 2 new ones coming down the pipe. One's called My Father's Ghost, and another one called Whispers in the Dark, and they're slamming. I mean, I think they're even better than the first one. So
Cool.
I'm really, really excited about this new path. The label is also going to reissue our debut record, Tall Dark Secrets. It was sold out with the label last time. And the new label is going to also focus on, a lot more pipes and getting it out there, getting a bit more, attention to Fiction Syxx. So that's where we're at.
That label that you were on, I mean, I have friends who recorded music on that label, and then it would go out of print, or they'd only make a certain amount of copies. They didn't upload a lot of the material. So, I mean, I think all of your stuff I can find on probably YouTube and Spotify. If folks want to go listen to it and sample it, I'd also ask them, if you love the band and you like what they're doing, to reach out and try to, actually buy the songs and buy the CDs. I mean, it's crucial today with the music industry the way it is, and streaming revenue isn't very good. And you guys don't have radio support, at least right now. I'm hoping that might change someday for you, for a lot of different groups. But that's got to be a little frustrating for you guys. I mean, I think your music, and I think I said this to Eric, that I think your music would fit very nicely on today's mainstream rock stations. That I don't listen to mainstream rock because to me it's very monolithic, and they'll throw in an oldie here and there to try to keep the upper demos, as I used to like to call them. But it seems very barren to me, and it would be nice to hear some variety in there.
Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, it's a hard road. You can't break through. You have. So I had a joke going for a long time. I said, maybe if I change the name of the band to AC Kissy or something, that they would, play it more.
Yeah.
Because I mean, our music has been sent to Sirius XM. Our music has been sent to all of the people who spin that stuff, and it goes on deaf ears because we're not AC/DC and we're not Kiss and we're not those bands. So. And it's unfortunate because there's some really good groups out there. Like I love Sons of Apollo. Ron Thal Bumblefoot is an amazing, amazing guitar player. I just did myself and JK there's videos out there of us, going and doing his Planetary Lockdown thing. So we played some guitar on solos on his stuff, and he's just a really great guy. But so the point is that there are these bands here that are willing and able to do whatever we need to get and fill that space, but they have to open the door first, so.
Yeah, it's, maybe if you might want to try to get like a viral video going over on TikTok or something. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, you talked about all these bands. There's this band from Sweden that I've been plugging now for about 3 years called Perfect Plan. Kind of like the embodiment of Foreigner and Survivor and Journey, all kind of. Their singer is insanely good. His range is just, and I'm just sitting here going, okay. And this album, they put it out there, and the videos get a few thousand views, and they deserve a lot of views. But corporately, nobody has that experience that they used to have when music came out, and people would go, oh yeah, I heard it on W blah blah blah, and they played it. I want to find it. I wanted, because I used to do that as a kid. I used to go, wonder if I can buy this. You'd go to the store and you'd look it up, and it's coming out on this date. And you'd be all like rubbing your hands together, and you'd have your money ready and so forth. And that corporate experience, which was really kind of united people. Now it's kind of a thing where, people will tell me, hey, Dave, just go to Spotify, and I've been lectured, just get with the program. I mean, just download it, just stream it. And I'm thinking to myself, artists are really struggling right now. Then you've got this little pandemic thing going on where, if say you guys wanted to get out there, right, and hit the stage and do a tour, right? You can't even do that right now, really. I mean, maybe over in Europe, you can find a gig here and there with like 50 people in the room or something, but it's a tough road. So I always say, if you like Fiction Syxx, if you go and listen to this, please buy it. That's all I'm saying. Please buy, even if you buy a couple of tracks to start with. I mean, if you're selling it a la carte, which again is another thing that we didn't used to do. Yeah, you could go buy a 45 or cassette single or a CD single, and then you'd buy the album, but it was a progression where, oh yeah, I definitely want the rest of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, what we do now too is we're trying to break through. So I've been a real social animal. I've been on all the platforms pushing the Grammy stuff. I know how to use Photoshop and Adobe I also know to use Corel Photo. I make all the images. I'm making all the videos. So JK makes videos too. And so, but that's what, a lot of people sometimes complain about quality of video and stuff, but that's part of the whole thing. Is when you're not making the money doing what you're doing, then you have to fall back on your own abilities to do these things. So, you're absolutely right, is that if those things are funded more, we can do more of the cool things that they like to have, with the big production videos and stuff. But that's a whole different world, and it's a past life until we fix the problem. So
yeah. Well, I think you have to start with better compensation for streaming revenue, number one, and number two, you've got to get a record label, and maybe you're on a better label now, that understands that you just putting out a lyric video for a song and then saying, look what we just did, we released it, great, that's awesome. Now what else are you going to do for it? You're going to call anybody? You're going to, if you don't have a staff and you're a one-man show and you're telling everybody how great your record label is, and that's all you're doing, you're going to NAMM or you're going to a conference here or there to tell people how all these great bands that you have, but yet that's not going to do it, because people, you'd be surprised how many people that learn about something well after the fact. Like I'll post something, I have a Patreon account, and I'll post stuff in there, and people I've never heard this. It's been out for like 11 years, and so we're in a bit of a war, and we have to find ways, like you said, creative ways to kind of overcome um, some of the obstacles. Again, unless you can get one of your songs in a video game or some kind of production where they use it as background music and people, I mean, that seriously, that might be your best lane, because this music, I think this music would appeal to teenagers. I think it would appeal across the board because it's not simplistic, it's interesting. It would go good with like some kind of a dark video game or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then again, as an artist, you're probably thinking, look, it's music. I created some art here, and I'd like people to listen to it and not necessarily associate it, because there have been times where songs get associated with movies or whatever, and people go, oh yeah, remember that movie? And it's cool to remember them. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm like, yeah, but remember the song. The song is what is the most important thing. I mean, you may have watched that scene 100 times and remembered that song was in it, but like Don't Stop Believing, that was a song before it became a big thing in The Sopranos. And but it, again, there are arguments for both sides, and I'm just hoping that your music gets out there to people.
Yeah, I don't care how they associate it, as long as it gets out there, it's fine with me. I mean,
Yeah.
So, and like, we do other things on the side too to try and promote. So to promote a band too, you also promote other things you're doing to bring it back to the band too, right? So like right now I'm doing a project with my drummer, Rory Fashion, with a guy named Scott Campbell out of Orlando. And we're doing something called Farmer Bob. It's all for fun. It's we're doing 70s and 80s tributes. The first one we did was Fight the Good Fight by Triumph. So we're doing that. We're doing Dio. We're doing Judas Priest. We just did one with Ronnie Monroe from Metal Church. We did a remake.
Wow.
We metaled up an April Wine tune. And, so we do Syxx. We do all kinds of stuff. We did Crocus and Nazareth, and so we do all kinds of stuff. And it's fun, and but it also brings some attention to the other members and what we're doing. JK is really an excellent engineer and producer. He has a studio called Alien Production Studios or Alien Production Studio, and he does great work. So he works with a lot of bands. So his name is out there in many ways. And as you know, like we talked about Eric, I mean, his name is out there because I think his phone probably rings off the wall, and his email's probably full, come play on our stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we all, do other things to try and bring attention over. Me, I try to utilize the history, background history as well. Some of the people that I played with, I have songs out there with Dean Fasano, who passed away some years ago, who was in Prophet, and he sang for a while with Bonham, and he was in a band with Richie Sambora before Bon Jovi. And the good friend of mine, Bruce Foster, played on a lot of my stuff. He played piano on the song "Got Nothing to Lose" on the first Kiss album. That's Bruce Foster.
Wow.
He's written 3 songs with Richie Sambora for solo albums. He played with Gladys Knight and the Pips, but the list goes on. And I try to utilize that history. And on the alternate side, and the alternate me, I'm an inductee into the NASA Space Technology Hall of Fame. I invented a bunch of stuff, and along with some systems that were put around the world. And so, there's a long history and road there that I try to utilize all of that to blend it into this thing that we now do. Right. So,
that's really cool. That's a cool story. It's kind of like you're a Renaissance man with all that stuff you're talking about there. It's just, it's like Tom, you kind of remind me of like Tom Schultz, your music is kind of like, hey, I do all this other stuff, and then I do this music thing called Boston,
which I love Boston. Loved. I actually owned a Rockman at one point.
Wow.
And I remember a story in 1985. I was a barback and a security guy at a club in Mississippi on the Gulf Coast. I had moved down there from New Jersey well, there's a long story, but it had to do with my father. My father was a wonderful guy, but he was murdered when I was 10. So,
Oh,
but
man.
we moved down to Mississippi. And so I was working there, and a band used to come through there named Lillian Axe. And
Yeah.
that was the original group, and I got to be really close friends with Steve Blaze. I call him Stevie. He's a wonderful guy. He now still has Lillian Axe, but he also does he's doing this ghost show, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, the story is that I got on stage and I grabbed Stevie's guitar. It was that Van Halen kind of striped I think it was a Charvel.
Yep.
And he was playing through this really loud high watt. And I looked behind the curtain, he was powering it with a Rockman.
Yeah.
I was like, check it out. So anyway, we ended up doing Paranoid, and we were like rocking the place. It was great. It was loud. I loved it. So anyway, it's just stories like that are so much fun. We all have our tour stories and everything. So, but I have plenty of them and some of them are hilarious. As a matter of fact, there's one other one I'm thinking about that I think you'll like. It's funny. So I was touring with a band called Persian Risk, and Persian Risk had this singer who was with the Geezer Butler band, and he was in that band with Jimmy Bell. Jimmy Bell, oh, what a smoking guitar player he is.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were touring around, and so he got a call and said, "Yeah, mate, we're in town." It was Motorhead. Phil Campbell used to be in Persian Risk, the original Persian Risk in England. And when Carl came here, he brought the name over and put USA on the end. And so it was Motorhead opening for Black Sabbath. So of course he knew Geezer too, because he was in a band with him. And opening up for them was Morbid Angel. So we show up at the Miami Arena.
Yeah.
So we're backstage with Motorhead, and I remember they were great guys. And I remember Lemmy was over on the other end. He was talking to this blonde, as they say, blonde bird. And so the guys look at me and they go, "Look, you're going to have to excuse Lemmy. He's usually a lot more personable, but it's not often he gets a beautiful bird like that." I thought that was just so funny. It was really great. And they wore our shirt on stage. They were great guys. They put on our Persian Risk shirt. They got up there and they were rocking out. It was pretty cool. So.
That is, and and that goes back to the days, there's a lot of camaraderie between bands, and, everybody was out there, and to some degree there was a lot of friendly competition. If you're an opening band, you're hoping that you blow the headliner off the stage, or at least you make an impression before, the headliner comes on. I don't know, these days it's a different world out there. I mean, basically they put together packages and people go see, and it's cool. I mean, people our age, what they want to see, or at least my age, they want to see, all of these different bands together on stage, and it's what drives them out there. Because maybe one of them wouldn't do it, depends on who it is, but you put 3 or 4 of them together. But I remember being a kid, like I cared about the opening band. I mean, I wanted to see what they were about, and a lot of times I discovered a lot of music that I wouldn't have known if a promoter hadn't been smart enough to say, okay, I'm going to put you on this ticket with this other band that's going to draw in the same kind of audience, which, today I'm not sure that's the motivation. I think it's really just about filling seats. But so you've talked about influences, you've talked about your new record label, you've got new songs in the tank. Let's how about a timeline next year sometime, probably for a complete album?
Yeah, the label's looking at like maybe early next year. So we're working through those songs. Between us, I write all the time. I mean, it's music. I'm hearing the music in my head right now. So it's just, it never stops. And so some say that's a problem, maybe there's medication for it, but I don't want to stop the music, so I'll stay away from the medications.
Yeah, just keep getting those transmissions. And do you have a working title yet, or you don't know?
Yeah, it's Ghost of My Father's Past. And I'll give you a little bit of a storyline, because everything has a storyline. With this particular record, Ghost of My Father's Past has 2 premises to it. One is our forefathers. I'm a big history buff, and I believe that we learn from both our mistakes and the things that are laid forth and how everything was built and why it was built, and those things mean something. So that's why there's no apostrophe in the S for fathers. also the cover, the image of the man in the front on the cover, or the person looking in the mirror, that is a representation of me and my father. So my father was murdered when I was 10. He was involved in the mafia. It was so it was the Colombo crime family.
Wow.
And so when he was gunned down, that's how we ended up in Mississippi.
Yeah.
But I learned from a lot of things that he did wrong. He had a great heart, but he was into trouble. Right. So I learned from all of that. And so, but I feel still that ghost, a lot of him is in me. So it's got this kind of mixture of this whole thing that makes me who I am, and, makes this record ultimately what it is. So everything has this cohesive storyline to it. Anything is put together that way that I try to put out, or that I try to be a part of. So.
Wow. That's heavy stuff, man. You can tell by the lyrics to these other songs that I've heard that this is thinking man's music. I know I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody who just wants to party and drive around in their car looking for hot chicks and so forth. I mean, rock and roll to me, it can be both. I think if you're writing about politics all the time, if you're U2 or Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan, and people kind of expect that's where you're going to go, I think that's fine. There's an audience for that. There's an audience for progressive rock, where the concepts, one thing I love about a lot of prog and a lot of music in general is it's open for your interpretation. I think in most music is, but some things are kind of like, what they're singing about here with the more basic concepts. But when people put forth, these bigger ideas that you're talking about, they might be able to relate it to something that happened in their own life, or that they're seeing outside their window that day, or they flip on the news and it's like, wow, this has got application to what just happened today. So I always enjoy music like that. And you tend to listen to that more in a way where you hear it maybe differently than you heard it maybe the first time you listened to it. Like if you continue over the years, these older songs from like the 70s, 80s, whatever, and you hear a lyric and you go, I know what they mean here. I didn't know what they meant then, and now I kind of know, or it might relate to something. I'm always intrigued by that, how your mind works that way, because it's, and then you think to yourself, maybe, am I the only one? Am I getting a secret message here? I've heard the Dark Desert Highway a billion times, but now I kind of understand what he means by, the Dark Desert Highway, and so, but it's a metaphor for something else. And then you just kind of go on with it. And some people don't think that much, and I get it. Sometimes music is just, I need to escape. I need to get out of this matrix, and I need to go somewhere else. And I think music is a great tool, a great healing tool if it's used the right way. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you probably also ran into the problem of, I've been singing that lyric wrong for 20 years. Is that what they're saying? So it's like Inagata Davida.
No idea.
Supposed to be in the Garden of Eden. But anyway, I think that's hilarious. But so you bring up something that brings me back to a story off the first record, which was Tony Franklin. I sent him the lyrics for the song Your Promised Land. Yeah. And he came back to me and he said just what you said. This has been done a million times. The girls in the rock, he says, you can do better. Yeah. And so I went ahead and rewrote it, and I wrote it about what my father was thinking at the time of his death, and what he would be saying to God based on his life, and whether he could be part of that promised land. And that's what that song's about. But I sent him the new lyrics, and he says, now that's what I'm talking about. So that's exactly what you were saying, is that I kind of fell off the cliff there for one song, and one of the wonderful members I was working with brought me back to where I needed to be on solid ground. So I agree with you. I try to stay away from the typical stuff that just kind of, okay, it's been done.
I mean, this is what was great about the rock and roll era that I grew up in, is that you can have a band like Poison, which you kind of know Poison is Poison. They're going to be singing about chicks, and they're going to be basically on the hunt for the best looking girl in the world and so forth. And they're going to be raunchy, and and you know what you're getting there. But then you could, you could also be listening to like Rainbow, on the same radio station, where you're going to get some thought-provoking, mind-bending lyrics along with the great guitars and the great chord progressions and so forth. And in both of them can coexist. This is an example of a radio format that used to be really healthy, where you could have all of this, where if you needed a break from all of the, the Roger Waters and David Gilmour, and you needed a break from that, the next tune would be Led Zeppelin, and they would be doing something completely different, So, I mean, I'm hoping music will get back to that, and I'm hoping that you guys you will be a success in your future endeavors. And I wish you the best. I mean, this stuff is great. I wish you the best with this Grammy nomination, which would be mind blowing that I spoke to the Grammy award winning artist, Fiction Syxx. That would be a feather in my cap. And
that would be awesome. I hope that's your. I hope that comes true, and I hope that you get a bunch of feathers that you can stick in.
Yeah.
So you're bringing me back to a meme as we're about to get off of here. Is that when you said about Roger Waters and Robert Plant? This is the world we live in social media now. I'm thinking about that meme that Robert Plants while Roger Waters. Have you seen that one? It just cracks me up every time I see it. It's like, man, these people have no time.
Yeah, they really don't.
Time in their hands. Yeah, so that's just too funny.
They really don't have time. You're right. You're right. It's just they invent ways to be kind of corrupt and misguided and so forth. And
well, I appreciate you having me come on here. I really enjoy speaking with you, and anytime that you need to get in touch with me, you know where to find me. So
yeah, well, I appreciate having that kind of relationship. It makes me I'm also grateful that you decided to look me up and give me a ring. I'm open pretty much to anybody who wants to kind of talk about what they have going on, and maybe my audience will gain something from it, will learn something, will be interested hopefully in the music. You guys have a website?
Yes, it's fictionsyxxrocks.com, and that's Syxx as in SYXX. And we also have an extension which is FYC-Ghost, and that's all the Grammy stuff that they can look at there. So
excellent. And all your stuff, like I said, it is on Spotify and YouTube and the various platforms.
It's everywhere.
All right.
And you can also go look at our videos, and you can laugh at my earlier ones if you'd like. There's one on there that's hilarious. It's for our first album, the opening song called Given Sight, which is about spiritual sensitives. It actually has me and our bass player couldn't make it for the video. He had other projects going on. He was about to head off and do. So I did a green screen of me wearing a blonde wig with an anonymous mask, and I'm playing guitar behind me singing. So it's hilarious. It's got all like the typical green screen horror stuff behind us. And it was my first, attempt at putting all people on one stage in a video. It was fun. Some people made a lot of fun of it, but I was like, well, you want to give me $150K, I'll go do a fantastic video for you.
Hey.
So
yeah, there's nothing wrong with creative campiness when you're when you don't have a huge budget. I've done some interviews with bands where they're like, look, we wanted to put out a really great video. The band Helix just did a video like that where they did it themselves, and I thought it came out really good. I mean, if it were in the old days, it would have probably won an award on MTV just for, editing and all the color and style and so forth. You look back at some of those, those original videos that won all those awards, you're like, really? I mean,
this is like cheesy cutouts and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody with Pro Tools now could probably beat that. So, Mark, thanks for coming on today. I wish you the best with the new project and all your future endeavors.
Thanks, buddy. Anytime, man. I appreciate it.
All right.